Perhaps you've noticed that over the past 3 years, prices for virtually everything have been rising at a staggering rate. According to the UN, just in the last year alone, inflation, which means the devaluation of money followed by a subsequent rise in prices, has broken records of the past 30 years. The European Union has seen its highest inflation rates ever, and the situation in the US has only been worse twice in history. And these are the wealthiest regions in the world. The situation in other countries is even grimmer. For instance, inflation in Argentina has reached 100%, while in Turkey it remains at 60%. Today, all countries and economies are interconnected, so everyone feels the price hikes. Now we'll discuss why wages and incomes can't keep up with the soaring prices and how millions of people are already safeguarding their personal capital and retaining opportunities for survival and growth using cryptocurrency. I hope this video will be your first step towards strengthening your financial position without resorting to trading, purchasing paid courses, or aggressive advertising, and will provide you with a deeper understanding of the current economic situation. My name is Ivan. I'm an investor and businessman. I have 6 projects in the realm of crypto, IT, and artificial intelligence. And while I'm working, right now my digital twin is recording this video for you. All the information has been personally verified by me. The future is already here. Food, gasoline, cars, smartphones, education, and services are getting more expensive worldwide. This is all due to inflation. It directly impacts your wallet. So, in a few minutes, I'll explain with examples what it is, how it works, why it's gotten worse, and what awaits us all in the future. Imagine that at the beginning of the year you earned $1,000 a month and spent $200 on groceries. But month after month your bills increased. By the end of the year you're already spending $220 on food. The same goes for gasoline, household bills, and so on. Suppose you make a living repairing cars. If you need more money to live, you raise your service prices. This way, inflation from goods transitions to the service sector, and the cycle continues. Everything becomes more expensive. Some things just rise faster than others. In the end, to maintain the same lifestyle as before, you now need to earn $1,200 a month. You haven't started eating more, nor have you bought a new house. Everything just became 20% more expensive. So that 20% is the inflation rate in your country for the year. The causes of inflation can vary. For instance, the country's population might have increased, but bad weather or a drought negatively impacted the wheat harvest. Thus, the demand for bread has risen, but the amount of bread has decreased. This means stores will raise prices because either you'll pay or your hungry neighbor will. It might seem like prices can be frozen, but in that case, there won't be enough bread for everyone, leading to a shortage, and the store shelf will be empty. But these are all minor and isolated reasons for price increases. It's much worse when the state needs money for new expenses, to pay scientists to win the space race, or to recruit 3 times more soldiers to send them to war, or to provide more medical services, or to support refugees, or to address the aftermath of a hurricane. All these are billions of dollars that simply aren't available. So the government just prints more money. This process is called emission. So now, there's more money than actual goods and services produced. For instance, last year, let's say the country produced 100 smartphones and there were $100 in the economy. Each smartphone cost $1. But this year, the government printed more money and now there are $200 in the country. There are still 100 smartphones, but $200. Therefore, one smartphone now costs $2. Due to emission, inflation amounted to 100%. And what happened over the last 5 years? An epidemic that forced governments to spend money on healthcare. At the same time, people had to stay home. Production decreased. People couldn't spend as much on entertainment, travel, and countries' budgets suffered. This was a massive blow, the effects of which are still felt. Naturally, governments printed more money, fueling inflation. But later, political conflicts of interest, ambitions of different countries' authorities, and an unwillingness to negotiate led to a military conflict in Ukraine. Increased defense spending, combined with the loss of lives, didn't improve the situation, but mutual sanctions only added fuel to the inflationary fire. After all, Russia is one of the main global suppliers of energy resources, which affect the cost of producing virtually everything. Between these events, there was also the US-China trade war, instability in Africa, the migration crisis in Europe, events in Israel, and much more. The news doesn't inspire optimism. For instance, a recent grain deal fell through. Today, all countries are interconnected through production and trade chains. There are virtually no countries independent of each other in one way or another. Therefore, problems in one part of the world affect everyone. Typically, an inflation rate of a few percent is normal. If inflation is higher, it's not very good, and a country's development slows down. But the problem is that according to the UN, inflation over the past year has broken records of the last 30 years. As usual, the poorest suffer the most. For instance, in just the first half of 2022, another 100 million people in developing countries fell below the poverty line. But even in the wealthiest nations, there are significant problems. Inflation in the European Union exceeded 9%, breaking records. In the US, food prices increased by about 10% and gasoline by 60%. This is the third largest inflation spike in US history. The economies of less developed countries depend on the euro and dollar. As a result, for instance, inflation in Argentina first reached 60%, then 100%, and at one point the country even declared default. Turkey has an inflation rate of over 60%. So, unless you've had incredible and record-breaking promotions at work and income increases, it's natural that you're becoming much poorer, and the rise in prices is impossible to match with the growth of your income. But the worst part is that this is just the beginning of our problems. I recently came across research by an economist named Russell Napier. 30 years ago, he predicted the Asian crisis of the 90s and became world famous. Since then, he's made several accurate predictions. 2 years ago, when inflation was just starting to ramp up worldwide and everyone said it was a temporary phenomenon, Russell warned of the return of inflation, and he was right. Now he's warning of a 20-year phase of structurally elevated inflation and financial downturn worldwide. In simple terms, for the next 20 years, global inflation will only increase. Now I'll tell you how cryptocurrency has already saved millions of people. About 15 million Argentinians kept part of their money in crypto. So while their friends and relatives became 1.5 to 2 times poorer, and in 2021 even faced default, those who trusted new technologies saved and even increased part of their savings. Currently, over 300 million people use cryptocurrency. Now, let's grab a calculator and figure out together how cryptocurrency can protect your savings and why you shouldn't fear its rate changes. First and foremost, there's a type of cryptocurrency called stablecoin. This is a cryptocurrency that, for instance, is pegged to the dollar's exchange rate like USDT or to precious metals like gold. It's convenient to store and transfer money in it because its rate doesn't fluctuate as much as the rate of Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies. To be precise, it hardly changes at all. By the way, USDT surpassed traditional payment systems like Visa and MasterCard in terms of processed payment volume in 2022. USDT handled transactions worth $18 trillion, Visa managed $14 trillion, and MasterCard $7 trillion. Secondly, short-term investments in medium-risk coins, whose rates change, like Bitcoin, are indeed risky. But the longer the term you're willing to invest in Bitcoin, the higher your chances of earning. From 2021 to 2023, its price, despite its ups and downs, increased by 8%. Meanwhile, dollar inflation during the same period was about 18%. For instance, if you had invested $1,000 in Bitcoin in 2021, you'd now have $1,080. But by merely holding onto dollars, you've reduced your purchasing power by 18%, meaning you can buy almost a fifth less than you could 3 years ago. Thus, crypto, due to its growth, at least partially offsets losses from inflation. And if your country has its national currency, you should also consider its inflation relative to the dollar. So if you had bought Bitcoin for 10,000 Turkish lira in May 2021, you'd not only get an 8% profit today, but after selling the Bitcoin, you'd get dollars, which you could then exchange for lira. You'd get 3 times more lira than you spent 3 years ago, plus 8% pure profit. By having a portion of your money in various cryptocurrencies, you can protect yourself not only from the inflation of the national currency, but also mitigate the inflation of the US dollar. For instance, the growth of Ethereum, the second most popular cryptocurrency, is greater than Bitcoin's growth. Over 50 of the largest companies from various industries, from Microsoft and Tesla to Subway, trust crypto. It's approved in over 100 countries worldwide, and despite the skepticism over the past 10 years, crypto has not only continued to exist, but has also evolved. You don't necessarily have to convert all your savings into crypto or urgently buy anything. I merely urge you to open your eyes to progress and learn more about how to use it to your advantage. Given the situation we all find ourselves in, this isn't a luxury but a necessity. I suggest you invest just a few minutes of your time to watch other videos on my channel about the mistakes 90% of crypto newcomers make, how not to lose money when buying crypto, how to transfer money worldwide with crypto much cheaper than traditional methods, and how to start using crypto with just a couple of dollars. That's all for today. Please leave your questions in the comments if anything remains unclear. I hope this video was helpful.